Hello, everyone. Today we are going to address parts of speech, types of verbs, and verb tense agreement. We will start out with parts of speech, though. In English, there are multiple types of words, and those types of words are defined as different parts of speech. Today we're going to look at four in particular, the four most common. First off, we have nouns. Nouns are words that describe a person, place, thing, or idea, so they are things that we can refer to in a sentence. Verbs are actions or state of beings. And by state of being, what I mean is sometimes we use verbs to show that something is simply existing. Even if it isn't doing something, it still exists. And so we're going to use a verb to describe that existence, which is what I mean when I say state of being. Adverbs are words that describe verbs or adjectives. And finally, adjectives are words that describe nouns. And we're going to look at some examples of those. First, we'll start with nouns. We have a sentence here that says, the boy chased after the mangy dog. In this sentence, boy and dog are both nouns. They are things that we can refer to. In this next sentence, we have the garden was blooming with flowers. In this sentence, garden and flowers are both nouns. Again, they are things that we can refer to. Now we'll check out some verbs, though. The boy chased after the mangy dog. Chased is an action, so that is a verb. In our next sentence, we see the cattle were grazing in the pasture, and you'll notice that two words are underlined here. Both of those are working together to be the verbal phrase in our sentence. They are both verbs, and we will talk about why there are two words here in more detail in just a minute, but what you need to know for now is that grazing is an action verb and were is a helping verb. We'll address that in more detail in just a moment, though. Next, we have adverbs, and in the sentence, you can see it says the cattle were grazing peacefully in the pasture. The word peacefully is describing the word grazing. Grazing is a verb, therefore peacefully is an adverb. Next, we have the woman walked quickly into the meeting. Again, the word quickly is describing how the woman walked, and walking is a verb. Because we are describing a verb and how a verb took place, again, this is an adverb. Next up, we have adjectives. And in this sentence, it says, that mean-looking kid stole my money. Mean-looking, that hyphenated word in the middle, describes kid. And kid is a noun. Kid is a thing. And because kid is a noun, it's a thing. Mean-looking is therefore an adjective because our adjectives describe nouns. Finally, the ugly duckling turned into a swan. In this sentence, duckling is our noun. Ugly is describing the duckling. And so because ugly is describing a noun, it is therefore an adjective. Beyond parts of speech, though, we need to talk about the different types of verbs that exist in the English language, and there are three of them. The first type of verb is an action verb, and the action verbs are single words that show an action in a sentence. So these are the ones that are most obvious. They are talking, walking, parading, dancing, frolicking. All of those words are action verbs. Helping verbs, on the other hand, are small verbs that change the tense of the action verb in a sentence, and we'll look at examples of those in just a moment. And finally, we have linking verbs, and linking verbs are kind of the trickiest type of verb because those are small verbs that connect a noun with a description, or they show a state of being, like I mentioned earlier. So they are small verbs that show that something is existing, or they are small verbs that connect a noun with its description. And we'll look at examples of those in just a moment as well. First off, though, we will look at an action verb. So our sentence says, that mean-looking kid stole my money. In this sentence, our action verb is stole. That is something that you can do. It is an action that you can accomplish. Therefore, it is an action verb. In our next example, we have a sentence that says, I will wash my car on Friday. Now, our action verb is wash. That is something that you can do. But will is also a verb, and it's a helping verb because what it is doing is it's changing the tense of the word wash. Without will, we would not know that this sentence is taking place in the future. Will, therefore, changes the tense of our verb, the tense of the sentence, so that we know that this sentence will happen eventually. It hasn't happened in the past. It's not happening right now, but it will happen. And that shows a change in tense. So again, our helping verbs are small words right before our action verb that change the verb's tense. And then finally, we have linking verbs. So in this sentence, it says, I thought the movie was really funny. Thought is an action verb. That is something that you can do. It's an action that you can take. But then we have this other verb, was. And was is a linking verb because what it is doing is it is linking a noun with a description and it is showing a state of being. Let me explain. Movie is our noun. Really funny is a description. Was is used in order to show that the movie was really funny. So it's showing that the movie existed, and as it existed, it had this description attached to it that was funny. Now, the easiest way to identify a linking verb is simply to know linking verbs, because there's only a few of them. And in particular, these are the ones you should watch for. Be, am, is, are, was, were, been, being. Sometimes these verbs are referred to as to be verbs because they show that something is being, something is existing, but they're also referred to as linking verbs. Now, if you can become familiar with these verbs, it will be a lot easier to identify them. Otherwise, it is kind of tricky because action verbs you can see right off the bat because they are something that you can do. To be verbs are verbs that you just need to be familiar with. So again, we have be, am, is, are, was, were, been, and being. Finally, though, we need to talk about verb tense agreement. And verb tense agreement simply refers to when all of the verbs in some sort of passage, maybe it's a sentence, maybe it's a paragraph, when they all have the same tense. That is what we want. When they don't have the same tense, that is a grammatical error. So the three main tenses that we have in the English language and just in general are past, present, and future. We went to the store is past tense. That shows that something happened in the past. Present tense, we are going to the store. That shows that something is happening now. And future tense, we will go to the store, shows that something will take place in the future. These are our three main tenses. And so we need to make sure when we're writing that when we choose a tense, we stick with that tense all the way through. Here's an example of that. The boy chased his dog. As he ran, the boy yelled and called his dog's name, but the dog didn't notice. The dog just ran and ran all the way to the park, determined to find the cat that had escaped his paws only moments before. All of the verbs are underlined in this passage. And if you look at them, you can tell that they are all in past tense. That means that this passage has proper verb tense agreement. It is written correctly. Now, if these verbs were all in different tenses, if we had past tense, present tense, future tense, that might be a problem. Sometimes we can show different tenses in our writing when tenses change, when we move from past tense to present tense or present tense to future tense. But generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, we want all of our verbs to be in the same tense. As you are looking at verb tense agreement, though, you need to be aware of linking and helping verbs. Here's an example of that. I will be studying all weekend is not the same as I had been studying all weekend. Even though they have the same action verb, studying, and it doesn't look like studying is in different tenses, we can look at the helping verbs, will be and had been, to see that these sentences actually do take place at different times. I will be studying all weekend is going to happen in the future. I had been studying all weekend happened before in the past. And so when you look at verb tense agreement and make sure that your verb tenses actually agree and actually align with one another, you need to also check your linking and helping verbs. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching.